your purpose is who you can't help being.
What is your purpose? That's what our next guest hopes to help you find. We caught up with Richard Boele, keynote speaker at our IS Connect 26 Brisbane conference. Richard is the Chief Purpose Officer and partner with KPMG Australia. He's a widely published thought leader on human rights, social impact, and purpose insights. Formerly a director at the United Nations Global Compact and his own human rights consultancy, Banara, he now focuses on the field of purpose, corporate, career, and personal purpose that will help realize positive impacts for society.
Well, Richard, thanks for joining the show. We're here at the IS Connect 26 conference in Brisbane, and you were the keynote speaker this morning. Could you give us a little bit of a taste of the topic that you spoke on?
Oh, just a taste. Look, Dan, who was facilitating the panel, asked me to be provocative, right? So I guess I went in two directions in terms of being provocative. One was around just that concept of sustainability, and also what I heard earlier this morning during the breakfast, which was around sustainability practitioners needing to be careful around looking after themselves, because, you know, we're working in an area where what we're working towards can move away from us. Right? We have a goal, we can see that's what I'm working towards, context changes, budgets change, cuts are made, and then all of a sudden that sustainability outcome that we were working towards just moves away from us. So what I was offering to certainly the plenary session this morning was, with my purpose work, what we've been doing is separating and making a distinction between purpose and impact. So those two words are words that people often interchange. So they'll talk about their purpose as actually an impact. And the example I was using was, I had a senior leader sort of challenge me when I was first presenting to her what we intended to do in terms of bringing purpose to life at KPMG. And she sort of turned to me and said, "Look, Richard, love the work that you and Nick do, but I do not get up in the morning and want to save orangutans." Right? And I was like, oh, actually, that's perfect, because what we're doing is separating impact, and in that case, the impact is an orangutan has been saved. So we wanted to separate that impact from what is it that you bring to save orangutans. And in separating, we call that thing that you bring to save orangutans your purpose. That's, if you like, who you can't help being, or your unique contribution. And if you bring that back to your personal purpose, then that's what you bring to create change, whether that's at work, whether that's in an environmental context to go and save orangutans, or whether that's with friends who you might then go to help because you see a friend in trouble. What is it that you uniquely bring? Who is it that you can't help being? And I guess our truism is that when you land on that, when you remember that, then you've remembered your purpose, and that's what you bring. So what we also see is when people do that, and we've helped people do that, articulate their personal purpose, it unlocks energy. And I think making that separation is potentially helpful, because it allows you to retain energy when that goal moves away. It allows you to unlock more energy that you need to start again because the goalposts have changed or the rules have changed. And that feels like the whole sustainability journey that certainly I've been on.
And it sounded like that purpose is what gets you the outcomes in the end, because you have the energy to achieve it.
I think if you're connected at a personal level, you clearly know your purpose and can articulate it. If your team that you're working in, you're clear in your role in bringing to life your organisation's purpose, that alignment, like all the, if you think about all those compasses pointing in different directions when there isn't alignment, if you can get all those compasses pointing using purpose and bringing purpose to life, I think that unlocks an enormous amount of energy to go and achieve the big things that certainly from a sustainable infrastructure point of view need to be achieved.
I think that's important in our industry, especially being sustainability professionals. We're very much purpose-driven, but we try to make it very much about the outcomes. And we're constantly being assailed for the purpose that we have. How do you encourage people to keep going with their purpose, stay focused on their purpose in order to achieve that action?
Well, if it works for people, is to reflect on what is it that I uniquely bring, or what does my organisation uniquely bring to the sustainability outcomes or goals or changes that we're aiming to make. And I think that teasing that apart allows you to hold on to what is it that you're uniquely contributing, even when it gets hard to achieve those outcomes and those changes. And that's a bit of reflection time. I think also we spend far too much time doing, and we don't create, it's maybe not time, but space. We don't create that time to just reflect and appreciate what has been achieved, even if it isn't what we originally set out to achieve.
Now, I know a lot of this is coming from your role at KPMG. Can you tell us a little bit about what you do and what your role is? It's a unique role.
I've been at KPMG for 11 years now. Oh, the time has gone. I came to KPMG when they acquired my business and human rights consultancy. So I had a social impact and human rights consultancy business that was bought by KPMG 11 years ago. 5 years ago, I got tapped on the shoulder by the then CEO, who wanted me to be the Chief Purpose Officer. And very simply, I said, well, that sounds like a crazy role. I'm not sure I want to do something like that. What is that? And he was keen that purpose, the organisational purpose, weren't just words on a page. Yeah, they were words that actually came to life. That's where, that was then been our, and when I say our, certainly for Nick and I, our focus has been on bringing KPMG's purpose to life by working at that individual level, working at that team level, and then working at the organisational level and trying to get that alignment, inviting people to just have conversations, create meaning around, here's my personal purpose, share that, here's our team role. Now let's get alignment in the team by all having clarity around what our role is when it comes to bringing our organisational purpose to life. So that's been the most significant part of the role, is that enabling of purpose. There's been a significant part of the role which has been about navigating. So I call it the navigator part, which is storytelling. I guess like I'm doing now is just sharing stories and sharing stories on the panel this morning. And then the third part of the role has been a challenger. So challenging the organisation, challenging leadership in terms of decision making aligned with purpose.
I assume that's industry agnostic. We're working in infrastructure. Yeah. What you're looking for is something that helps anyone in any industry. Yeah. But working in sustainability, sometimes our problem is wanting to be purposeful in too many places. Yeah. So how do you recommend people reduce the amount of purpose so that they're finding a focus area where they really can make that impact?
To me, it's important to then go where there's more possibility of change, because I think if you're in a context where it's impossible or near impossible, you need to find a lot of reserves and resilience to keep at it. So I've certainly, as a consultant, I've always sought out in those early days, late 90s, early 2000s, when we moved back to Australia, I went to leading companies who were making voluntary commitments, and that's where the early days for me as a sustainability practitioner were focused in looking to do that really leading thinking with leading companies. Today, it's a very different sustainability landscape. Even on the social side, people now, they don't talk about necessarily broader human rights assessments anymore. It's modern slavery, right? Because that's what's legislated, and that's where the compliance requirement is, and that's where the investment now from if you're working in an organisation, the investment is now, okay, how do I ensure that there isn't modern slavery in my supply chain? So things have changed. We've also had RUGI, the voluntary principles on business and human rights have come in. So it's a very different landscape than when I began.
You're right. 15 years ago, there weren't so many opportunities where you could feel like you were making progress because there was so much resistance against it. But now there's so many open areas where we've seen so much progress happen that whatever your passion is, you can get involved in that specific area and probably make a difference.
I think there's been widespread little shifts. Perhaps the frustration is we don't yet see those broader shifts. But that's what Matt was talking about this morning, right, on the panel, is, half of at times now, half of Australia's energy needs are met with renewables.
Right.
To me, that's...
You can see it real time.
Yeah, that's exciting progress.
I used to ask people our age, how did you first get interested in sustainability and climate change, and how did it first come to you? Like, was there an aha moment? And when I speak to people under 30, they just look at me with a blank face, because it's always been a part of their life, whereas in our early years, it was something rather revolutionary. One of the things I like that you said was that work is an adventure, and that helps give people purpose because they find they're on an adventure when they go to work in the morning. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Work becomes, I guess, easy to experience as an adventure if you're able to show up at work in terms of who you can't help being, right? So sometimes that's called, bring your whole self to work. To me, I don't necessarily think you do bring your whole self to work. I'm not sure if you ever do bring your whole self to work, because some of your work colleagues would probably just walk out the door if you truly brought your whole self to work, right?
Too frightening.
Yeah, but to bring who you can't help being, to bring that core of what you uniquely contribute, I think most work colleagues would say that's what they love about you.
Right.
That's what I love about working with Seth, right? He's always, whatever that might be. Go on, Seth. If I was going to
find it someday.
There we go. and I guess that for me is how you turn work into adventure. If you spend that time reflecting, you spend that time remembering who you can't help being, that empowers you then to bring that to work or in any other context. And I guess for me, work is life, and I've got the privilege of being able to experience work in a way where I touch many people, and I have that opportunity to invite many people to connect with work differently through the purpose work that I do as that Chief Purpose Officer. And
you believe so much in this that I understand you're writing a book.
Yes.
So you're quite committed to it. What do you plan to put in this book?
What we're going to put in the book is everything that we've learnt through bringing purpose to life in the last few years at KPMG. So what we did last year was we ran Purpose Week, and we had over 5,000 people attend our events across the country. So we called it Purpose Week. In some places it was one day, in other places it was 4 or 5 days, but we went around the whole country over about 4 months. And when you have hundreds and hundreds of conversations around purpose, you start to listen and learn a lot. Like, we had 1,000 people tell us what the word purpose means to them. We had hundreds of people engage with personal purpose by coming along to a Purpose Forge. Purpose Forge is our personal purpose program. 5 steps that takes you to helps you to remember your personal purpose. We did work with teams in terms of facilitating process that allowed the team to align and understand what their role is in bringing to life the organisation's purpose. And then obviously we were bringing the whole organisation's purpose to life and just inviting people to have a conversation around what does inspire confidence, empower change mean. And that was just extraordinary. To see such engagement, to see such energy come from a conversation around purpose. So really, really excited in terms of the insights that we gained from that. And the key one was that anatomy of purpose. You've heard me talk about that a number of times, that individual personal purpose. You generally feel like you belong in an organisation to a team. You don't necessarily, except in smaller organisations, you don't necessarily go to the organisation. You talk about the team, because that gives you your sense of connection. And from connection comes energy as well. So that's why we've really focused in understanding what we need to do to unlock the energy that comes from purpose at a team level, and then that organisation level. So we call that our anatomy of purpose. Alongside that is a range of what we're calling axioms, truisms, and you heard me say is your purpose is who you can't help being. That's one of our fundamental axioms in terms of our purpose work. And another one is your purpose is remembered, not invented. Right? So most leadership development work, you tend to kind of go, here I am, here's my current state. What do I want to be in the future state? and then you amplify the strengths and you work on the weaknesses. Our purpose program, Purpose Forge, it's reflecting, it's remembering who you can't help being. What is it that shaped me in terms of the joy, the events, the places, the people that have shaped me? How have tough times shaped me and now make me smile? What are my passions? And we invite people to reflect in that way, and through that they remember their purpose. But there's other things. We've got 8 axioms there. If you go through a personal purpose remembering process, if you don't feel like you're about to fail, if there isn't tension as you go through that process, it's not going to be successful. Yeah. Another one is doing purpose work. You need to be invited in. You cannot force working on purpose onto anyone.
What does that mean, inviting in?
If you're going to, I can't say, Seth, you've got to do Purpose Forge because it'll be so good for you. You've got to take a step towards saying, yeah, actually, my personal purpose, I got a sense of my purpose. And most people absolutely have that. Like when we went round, we would ask people, so in terms of your current role, how much do you expect your role to be able to allow your personal purpose to come to life? And people would answer somewhere between 60 to 80%. Yeah, that's what I expect of my role while I'm at work. And then the second question is, well, how much does it allow you to live your personal purpose while you're at work? And there were 2 groups. There was generally a smaller group that would say, well, 60 to 80. Yeah, they're clearly in the right jobs, right? Right. Yeah, they're clearly in places that enable them to live their purpose. And then there was a larger group, much larger group, that would discount that by 30%. So they would say, somewhere between 30 to 60%. And then we would say, okay, but what is your purpose? And then almost 95+% of people would be able to give us a sense of their purpose, but they wouldn't necessarily be able to articulate a clear purpose statement that has come from what they've remembered, that's come from their past, through the events, the people, the things that have shaped them, that have given them joy and given them energy. And that's what that's what we've developed through the work at KPMG, and that's what we're really keen to share through the book.
So how would an organization mind that by asking their employees, trying to find out what their purpose is, and then actually utilizing that to drive the organization?
Well, I think personal purpose is personal. So I think as an organisation, all you can do is enable people to remember, to connect with their personal purpose. If that works for them in terms of creating more energy for them to do their job, then I would say that's just a secondary benefit. I don't think you can do any work at a personal purpose level within an organisational context where you can expect that person to surrender the energy that might come from that to the organisational context, right? But what you can do is work with your team and create, with the teams that make up your organisation, to create real clarity around the team's role in bringing to life the organisation's purpose. And then I think there's loads that you can do at an organisational level to create a culture, to create a daily environment where people do question or reflect on a decision that goes to that organisation's purpose.
That's something that we do in infrastructure all the time around sustainability, is we don't have to ask people what their purpose is. Yeah. We empower them in order to find out what it is and then run with it. And whatever they can do to contribute using their purpose, it gives them that sense of pride along with that.
Perfect. Yeah, and I think that's really powerful. Now my question is when you do that, do they articulate or do they connect with an impact or an outcome that they label as their purpose? Or do they actually have a process, a way of being supported where they're actually remembering their personal purpose, who they can't help being?
Well, you'd said, and I like this, I'm paraphrasing, you said, purpose lives in conversation, courage, and curiosity. Mm-hmm. Those are 3 very different things, but they all are related in kind of that discovery and adventure process.
Yeah. When you have that moment, and I have that opportunity daily as a purpose coach, is to see people connect. And like my personal purpose is to create moments of magic where all voices are heard.
I thought that was a very relevant moment during the panel that you were asked, how do you sleep at night? Because people with purpose, unfortunately, that comes with the understanding of what's actually acting against your purpose or the hurdles that you might face. So how do you sleep at night, and how can other people sleep at night?
Yeah, I didn't answer the question on stage, so I'm glad you came back to it, Seth. I mean, the answer is quite simple. With that really clear personal articulation of my purpose, to create moments of magic where all voices are heard. And Seth, do you want me to unpack that? Do you want to know where that comes from?
Yes.
All right.
Yes, I want you to unpack it in a way that's going to help other people find it in themselves.
Okay. Well, and moments of magic, where does that come from? Well, when I was 7 or 8, I learnt to do magic tricks really badly, right? I mean, really badly. I was terrible crap at it. But in doing it, what I was able to do was hold adults' attention, right? And being the extrovert, I mean, it's no surprise, right? I'm the extrovert, right? It was addictive. I loved being able to hold that attention. Why did I become a consultant? Because I love nothing better than doing the research and preparing for that question with a client where they go, oh my goodness me, that's an amazing question. So there's a line there through all these experiences that I've had that shaped me, that continue to give me energy, right? Like I get enormous energy from being able to get up on stage. I love it. But where all voices are heard. So when I was 21, I finished. Where does that come from? I was in Tibet. I was on the 1st of October 1987. There was an uprising. Tibetan man was shot and killed next to me. A young Tibetan boy came and grabbed me by the hand, took me to his father's apartment, where his father proceeded to say to me, he said, look, I'm Tibetan, but I can't leave my country. You can leave my country. So please go home and tell your people what you've seen today. So I took that experience, came back to Australia and helped set up the Australia Tibet Council, which I'm really proud is still running today, that gave voice to Tibetan people. And 2 or 3 years later, I gave evidence at a permanent People's Tribunal in Strasbourg on my experiences in Tibet. And one of the judges came up to me later, and he was a judge called Justice Michael Kirby, who's a well-known judge here in Australia, former Supreme Court judge. And he came up to me and he said, Richard, I love your passion for the Tibetan people, but I think your potential and your potential for greater impact is there if you look at human rights across the globe and not just the human rights of the Tibetan people. But I think you should lift your sights, you should look higher, because I think you've got the potential to have impact on scale, on a bigger scale. And you'll do that if you then focus on human rights globally. And just that one conversation got me thinking and ended up with a focus on business and human rights, that intersection between business and human rights, which has now led me obviously to this broader world of corporate sustainability. Those are just some of the stories in my past that once I gave myself the space to reflect, I remembered what my purpose was, and I now have the words that are really my words, right? Create moments of magic where all voices are heard. They are my personal purpose words. No one else can take that purpose from me and go, this is my purpose, because no one else has the stories that I have in terms of how I've just brought that to life.
That's the adventure you're on. Everyone's purpose takes them on a new adventure, and that's how they can sleep at night.
That's how I sleep at night, is having that purpose. I've got the opportunity to stand up in front of all these people across KPMG to create moments of magic for them and allow them to hear voices that they otherwise wouldn't hear in terms of bringing purpose to life and giving meaning to them and energy to them. So I love to think of, if you like, that I can sleep at night because the purpose work and the way that we think about purpose and the way we bring purpose to life for people is about unlocking energy. So I'm the Chief Purpose Officer in the business of creating energy.
That's very inspiring. Well, thank you so much for being on the show, Richard.
Thanks, Seth. Loved it.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Infrastructure Connections. Please take a moment to follow us wherever you get your podcasts, and we want to hear your thoughts. Leave a comment down below to let us know what you think. Stay tuned for the next episode of Infrastructure Connections.